inspiring interviews with today's top landlords. This is the Rental Income Podcast. And now, Dan Lane.
I've got a great follow-up episode for you today. I am so proud of this guy. My guest on the podcast today was with us 2 years ago. And at that time, he had a full-time job, and he was slowly building his rental portfolio as he could. Some years, he might buy one rental property. Other years, maybe 2 or 3. And other years, maybe he wouldn't buy anything, but he ended up with 12 houses, 12 single-family houses. And since we spoke to him, something really cool has happened. He's built his rental income up to a point to where he didn't need the income from his job anymore. So he's been able to quit his job, and today he supports himself off of his single-family houses. So on the show today, we're going to figure out exactly how he did it. Joining us on the show today from North Carolina is Chris Cucchiara. We'll take a really quick break. We'll thank our sponsors. We'll come right back and we'll catch up with Chris. When I'm doing research to buy a new rental property, there's a lot of different websites, apps, and then a spreadsheet that I use to do my analysis. It's really kind of a convoluted process. Well, there's a much easier way. There's an app called Ask Rick. That's RIC for Rental Income Calculator. Ask Rick makes it really easy to find and analyze rental properties. You can see all the properties for sale in an area. If something looks good, you can press one button. It'll analyze the property for you. It'll figure out the rent amount. It'll figure out your mortgage payment, all your expenses, and give you your cash flow. If you're ready to move forward, you can make an offer right there on the app, or you can send the information over to your realtor to do some more investigation into the property. You can try it out for free right now. Just search for Ask Rick. That's RIC, Ask Rick in the App Store, or go to justaskrick.com. That's justaskrick.com. The first step in buying a rental property is to get pre-qualified, and I would suggest you work with a lender that specializes in working with investors, because the last thing you want to have happen is to get to closing and find out the money's not there and you can't close. The lender that I recommend is Chaley Ridge from Ridge Lending Group. She's a nationwide lender, and she'll pre-qualify you for free if you mention Rental Income Podcast. Find out more today. Contact Chaley at ridgelendinggroup.com. That's RIDGE lendinggroup.com. NMLS 42056. Chris, you were last on the podcast about 2 years ago, and a lot has changed since we last talked. So when we talked last time, you had a full-time job and you had been growing your rental portfolio over time. Tell me what's happened since we talked last.
Well, probably about a year after we talked, I had been I'd been at my position with the company I was with as a sales manager for about 27 years, and like a lot of real estate investors, I was wanting to leave and kind of get into real estate full time and get away from the stress and the travel and all the things that went with the job, So about a year after we talked, I did resign and went full time trying to make it in real estate.
That is awesome. So did you need a lot more properties to be able to quit your job, or were you able to live off the rentals that you had when we talked?
Well, I guess I think I possibly sold even one of those. I pretty much lived off those, to answer your question.
Okay.
It wasn't really, I didn't feel like I was 100% where I wanted to be financially, or as far as the passive income I was getting from those properties. But through circumstances, it was I had to go. It was time to leave, and I just decided to jump all in. I wasn't getting any younger.
All right. So talk me through kind of what you were thinking, like, or how you prepared to make the change. Like, was there like a period of time where you maybe were living off the rentals and saving all of your job income to see if you could do it? Or did you just kind of jump into it and quit your job and just think, well, we're going to figure out a way to make this work?
Well, yeah, I was never really in a position. My wife didn't work. So I'd say over the last 12 or 13 years, I started at 42 years old, and I started with basically nothing, like a lot of investors do. So I had to be creative through those years. And I went through spurts of, being aggressive with trying to get things done. And I discovered private money and private lending, and it was just building things as I was working, with always an eye towards getting out, but I never could just like live off of one and save the other. It was kind of all in one pot. And,
Okay.
you know, yeah, just pretty much, trying to get myself in a position, toward the end, where I was really ready to make that leap, and that involved doing some other things.
Okay. So was it scary, like to know, okay, well, I've got this rental income every month, I've got the job income every month, to know that you're cutting off one of your income streams? Was that scary?
It was a little bit. I had been really thinking about it hard the last year, and things were not going, well at my job. So I started getting my ducks in a row, which is, I think, really important. So I didn't do this irrationally, or, I think everybody, got to operate smartly, right?
Hmm.
So I kind of knew in my heart and my mind that I had one foot out the door. And so for that last year, I was really focused on, getting things sort of settled in my life and with my rentals. And that included, working with Chaley Ridge and her group, refinancing properties out of private loans into 30-year fixed mortgages, and, getting all my rentals in 30-year fixed loans at low rates and getting that all settled. I needed that W-2 income to be able to do
Hmm.
that, right?
Okay.
Need to be able to show that. Yeah. And, and paying down debt, personal debt, and getting rid of, minimizing my expenses so that when I made that leap, I wouldn't need, as much money to be
Right.
able to go.
So what kind of personal debt? Are you talking like car payments, credit cards, stuff like that?
I did have some credit card debt that was all real estate related. So I've got a lot
Okay.
of credit lines that I've built, excellent credit score, and I could borrow money at zero interest. And, but it was all doing deals and making things
Okay.
happen. And, every now and then sell a house, make a profit, pay that off. So it's just kind of the ebb and flow of what it takes, when you're shaking and moving and trying to make
Right.
it work.
Okay.
From
So you had basically paid down a lot of your real estate debt before you quit. So was your thinking, if I don't have these extra payments, then I'll have more cash flow?
that's exactly right. So,
Okay.
I even, when I sold one house, I bought my wife's vehicle, cash, and paid off mine. And, so, uh, didn't want anything coming in other than my mortgage payment and utilities, for my own
Okay.
personal, what I needed to, get by every month. And it was all part of the simplification to be able to live with a little bit less, but be free, and
Right.
be on my own and go out there. It's not like I'm going to stop, striving in real estate. I'll
Right.
probably never will.
Now, what I think is awesome is that you did this, and you don't have 100 properties. Like you've got, yeah, a good sized portfolio. How many rentals do you have?
Okay, so when we talked last time, I believe I had 12,
Hmm.
and I have bought and sold a few over the last 2 years. So I currently sit at 10. I have 10
Okay.
rentals plus my own home.
That is really incredible. Like seeing that you're able to live, and it seems like you're living a good lifestyle, and you're really happy with 10 rental properties. Why do you think that some investors get 100 rentals or 200 rentals? Like what do you think drives people to get huge portfolios where you're able to live a pretty good life with a much smaller portfolio?
Yeah, you got the guys that are just going all out
Yeah.
crazy, and they own hundreds or thousands of properties
Right.
and doors, and they can't seem to stop. It's almost like an addiction. And,
Yep.
you know, it, I don't even know it's about the money for them. I'm sure that they get wealthy off of it, but I think it's, I don't know. I don't want to say ego or drive or having a certain number of houses, or like, that's never been me. I just want to be able to live a comfortable life and have more, um, more than just, retiring on Social Security. I want
Yeah.
to be able to travel. My wife and I are getting older. Just wanted to be comfortable. I never really had that ambition to necessarily, have $1 million in the bank.
Right.
So for me, it's more about the wealth is like, I feel wealthy in that for the first time since I'm 14 years old, I've been working since I'm 14. I'm working for myself. I'm doing something for myself. I've got, I can get up whenever I want in the morning, start my day. I go in my office and I do my real estate stuff, and that's all I'm focused on. And I'm really happy. And that's the wealth to me. It's not really about what's in my bank account. It's more a lifestyle. It's about the lifestyle.
So how has it been in the last year? Has there ever been like any tough months or any months where you wish that you hadn't have quit your job? Like, have you ever regretted the decision to quit?
I have not. I have
Not
not.
once.
It's been challenging. It's been challenging, and in a good way, though. I think it's been really good for me. But I'm still having to scramble a little to make sure I can pay my bills, and I'm still working 40 or 50 hours, but I don't feel like I'm working. I'm enjoying every day. I'm loving life, and I'm figuring stuff out. I looked at a house 2 days ago, and I'm probably going to put an offer in on that. I put 3 offers in last week, and I'm still trying to make things happen. And, no, to answer your question, absolutely not. I haven't even thought about, and it's hard to believe after being somewhere for so many years, but I haven't even thought about my old job very much. It rarely even crosses my mind because I'm so focused on my new life and what I'm doing, and just loving it. So, I really put it behind me. It surprised me, honestly, Dan. It did take me a couple of months, I would say, when I first left, which is because it's so ingrained in your life and your lifestyle and your daily routine to sort of decompress. It's almost like going on vacation. It takes you a few days to get it really relaxed, right?
Right.
And it took me a couple months, I would say, to decompress and sort of leave it behind. But when I did, it was behind me. So
now, the other thing that I think is really cool about your story is that you were never really taking huge risks. I don't feel, or like buying a lot of properties in a short period of time. You slowly built your portfolio, picking up 1 or 2 properties a year, and some years you didn't even buy any, right?
I would say I am somewhat cautious or conservative, and so I don't want to make mistakes. Being that I started later in life, I guess had some advantages. Starting at 42 in real estate investing and having some life and business experience. And I knew going in that this was going to be my retirement plan. And I really wanted to have a good retirement and some money coming in. And I kept telling myself, you can't make any mistakes. You have zero room for mistakes. Mm-hmm. So, you can't afford to lose money. So I just, anything I did, there's no guarantees, but I always felt like I was really making a good investment. And, there was lots of equity. I'm not over leveraged on any of my properties. They're all probably 30 to 40% equity in the properties. And, they all cash flow nicely.
Yeah.
And so, yeah, I'd say that's true. And there were years, you're right, where I didn't buy anything because I was working like a nut and, I was still managing and I self-managed while I was working. Right. So it was a lot, but then I would get in these spurts where a few really good deals would come along in a very short period of time. And I had one year where I bought 4 or 5 houses. So yeah, it's just when a deal is right and you get a little experience and it's a good deal, then you've got to move really fast, pounce on it.
It really just shows your story really illustrates how important time is, that you just let time go by. And that sounds like it was really the biggest key to your building wealth, right?
Yes. Right. No, absolutely. We've talked about this, I know, and I always say to younger investors, I think it's the smartest thing they could do. You don't have to think too big. I mean, you can certainly if you want to. If you're one of those people and you're just, super driven, you're going to buy 20 houses this year, then, knock yourself out. But you better be careful because you could be moving so quickly that you're prone to make mistakes.
Right.
But if people could just, younger investors could just buy 1 house a year, that's a really realistic goal. And
Yeah.
and if they start that at 25 or even 30 years old, they'll be in way better position than I am right now
Oh,
at
yeah. I mean, if
55.
you're 25 and buy a house a year, by the time you're 45, you're going to have 20 houses. You're going to be fine.
You're
So,
going to be
yeah.
fine, and you can quit your job with 20 houses.
Yeah.
I can vouch for that. If
Absolutely.
I can do it at 10, you can do it at 20.
Yeah. So when you quit your job, you obviously you had a lot more free time, and you're not just sitting around the house. I mean, you're young, you've got time on your side, and you started, I guess, a couple of side hustles that are making you some money. And I want to kind of talk about this a little bit. The first one is you bought a property that you turned into an Airbnb.
I did.
How did that work out? Like, was this a property that you were gonna initially rent out long term, or did you buy it? Did you buy it to Airbnb it?
But what really got me started was a realtor friend of mine here where I live. Her and her husband do Airbnb out of their house. They have a little unit that's attached, and she was telling me all about it and how well they were doing. And so we ended up very quickly, finding a place. I'm in the western part of North Carolina, which is a tourist area. People come here to hike and bike and go to waterfalls and the mountains, trails, and whatever else. And they do very well out here. The Airbnbs do. So, yeah, we bought a unit, a house. It's a house. It's a single family house with an addition on it. My wife does the cleaning. I pay her to do that, and she makes a little side money. And it's been interesting, but there is a higher return for sure. But
Yeah.
you work for it.
Okay. Now, what about with the coronavirus that has really put a hold on a lot of people's travel plans? Has that affected your bookings at all?
Yeah, it's interesting. It affected it in ways that I couldn't even have seen coming, both good and bad. So, of course, it's kind of ramped up over the last couple of weeks. The seriousness of it all. Everybody's finally getting it, and but we started only a few months ago. Okay, we've not been doing this that long.
Yeah.
But right out of the gates, we were getting bookings like crazy, and we immediately got 10 5-star reviews, which makes us super hosts, and the money was coming in nice, and we were just having fun and really loving it. And then this sort of came up, and next thing you know, cancellation after cancellation after cancellation. Then probably a dozen in just a few days, and you're talking a couple $1,000s or more. They started canceling into April and May, and so that was the negative side. And we're like, all right, how are we going to handle this? So we started looking for other ways to maybe get that unit full. A couple people did still come, which was surprising, but I decided to focus on a little bit longer term rental for it, but not annual rental. So I started kind of gearing my ads towards traveling nurses and other, medical professionals.
Okay.
And yeah, so we ended up just to tell you the good side. So far, we're doing okay. We got a 30-day booking a few days ago. That's booked all the way through April. So that's awesome.
Yeah.
And what I did was I added some incentives on my listing for weekly and monthly stays. If they stay a week, they get 20% discount. If they stay a month, they get a 30% discount off of our published pricing.
Okay.
And yeah, that's actually drawn some people in.
Awesome. Well, so it doesn't sound like you're really that affected, and especially with those traveling nurses, I'm sure there's a big demand for healthcare workers right now. So that if you can keep that going, I think you'll be in good shape.
We've got both units booked right now, so we're just kind of riding the storm out, trying to get through this couple.
Well, that's great. I mean, that's a great little source of income for you. And then the other thing that you've done on with your spare time is you've actually flipped a couple of houses. How has that been working out?
I decided when I'd left my job that I needed other ways to generate money. So if I saw an opportunity, I decided I would think about flipping houses, even though it's not really what I do, or I would do one or two. So I did connect through the local RIA group with some local wholesalers. Ended up finding a place within just a few months of leaving my job that was really, really a mess, but had great potential and was kind of the ugly house in the neighborhood, which is what you want. And it was a lot of work. It was it was a lot of work, but we turned it in 7 weeks. We put $90,000 in rehab into it. And we paid, I think, $165, but we were able to sell it for $294. So we came out okay. We made some money, and it was a fun experience. I learned a lot.
And that's the kind of thing that if you were working, you just would have never had the time to do that. So Dan,
I was there every day, for seven weeks. And not that I was always doing all the work myself, but there was always things to do. There was contractors to coordinate with. We had so much going on, a lot of moving parts. And there is no way I could have done that employed.
Yeah. I mean, that's really just awesome. And just shows that if you just kind of follow your dreams, everything will work out, and you'll find other ways to make money. Well, Chris, that is awesome. Congratulations. I'm really happy to see that you pulled this off.
You got to jump in, you got to jump in with both feet and go for it. And everything will work out. In my mind, when I left, if I had to work a part-time job to pay the bills, then I would do that. But I haven't had to do that. It's worked out okay. Everything's worked out fine.
And what's the worst case? I mean, you can always get another job, if you needed to.
That's true. That's true. So no regrets. I would say, if you're close and you're thinking about it, do it. If you're not close, work towards it, and your day will come.
Good advice. Well, if you want to reach out to Chris, I've got his contact information on the website. You can find it at rentalincomepodcast.com/episode 258. I'd like to thank today's sponsor for making this episode possible. It's Chaley Ridge from Ridge Lending Group. If you are looking to buy a rental or maybe even refi, the rates are really low right now. It's a great time to refi. The lender that I recommend is Chaley Ridge from Ridge Lending Group. She's a nationwide lender, and she specializes in working with investors. She has a ton of different loan programs, and whatever you're trying to accomplish, Chaley can help you get there. If you want to find out more or set up a time to talk to Chaley, just go to ridgelendinggroup.com. That's RIDGE. lendinggroup.com. If you mention Rental Income Podcast, she will waive all the pre-qualification fees. NMLS 42056. Thank you so much for listening to the podcast. If this is your first time here, make sure you subscribe. We've got new interviews every Tuesday, and if you subscribe, you'll get notified as soon as we release a new episode. My name is Dan Lane, and this has been the Rental Income Podcast.